Are the Eagles in trouble? I kind of want to talk about that heading into week 5. I know that they haven't looked very good over their first 4 weeks, but I wanted to look at some more statistics to see exactly how they're shaping up about a quarter of the way through the season. Let's start by looking at the Eagles offense. You see that they're averaging on passing 152.3 yards per game, which is one of the bottom, if not the worst team in the league as far as passing the ball. It's very, very bad. They've had two halves in the past two games where they've been really, really bad passing the ball. One against the Rams, one against the Bucks. I know against the Bucks in the second half that they were leading by quite a bit, and so the Bucks were fighting their way back into that game. That being said, Jalen Hurts was 0 of 8 passing the ball in the second half, which is really, really bad, and they had negative yards passing the ball. I know part of that in negative yards total. Part of that was because they took like a 40-yard safety toward the end of the game to really put the thing away. That being said, it's still really rough and still bad. Taking 9 sacks this season so far through 4 games. Not great, not like the worst. Rushing, though, 59.3 yards per game. Saquon, 3.1 yards per carry, which is really bad, obviously, compared to last season. That being said, last season may be a little bit misleading because Saquon was averaging around that 3 to 4 yards per carry, and they would have like 2 or 3 60 to 70-yard runs per game. That's why they were so good last year, is because he would have these explosive rushes out of nowhere, and then when he wasn't having those explosive rushes, it was around 3 to 4 yards per carry. So now this year it's around 3 to 4 yards per carry and then no explosive runs. So they're just not having those explosive runs. I don't think the offensive line is playing quite as well as they were last year. That being said, they should be better because it is a very good offensive line still. So they'll probably improve that throughout the season. But it's still concerning to see the rushing and passing being so bad this season. And if you put it into perspective, they are 29th in yards per play, 4.2 yards per play, 29th in the league, 30th in yards per drive, 22 and a half yards per drive. It's just bad. They're taking time off the clock because they are taking their time in between plays. They're not running a fast offense at all, but they are putting their defense on the field more than they need to be because they cannot move the ball. So the offense has definitely been a problem for them. Now we look at the Eagles defense, and look, the Eagles defense has gone up against 4 good offenses. You start out with the Cowboys, who have a really good offense. Then you go up against the Chiefs, who have on paper, I guess, a good offense. You think about them missing a couple of pieces in the passing attack, but still it's Mahomes and Reed, so it's a good offense. And then you're going up against the Rams, who have a really good offense, and then the Bucks, who missing a couple pieces, but a really good offense. And Baker Mayfield was there. That being said, the defense should continue to look better throughout the rest of the season. They won't be going up against so many good offenses the rest of the season. But now, passing defense, they're averaging 215 yards per game allowed, which is 14th in the league, which is about average. And then opposing passer rating is 78.77th in the league. So they're definitely getting some turnovers. It'll continue to look better. And they have a really good pass rush. That being said, that doesn't always mean you have a good rush defense just because your pass rush is very good. So 126 yards per game allowed on the ground, which is 21st in the league, and 4.8 yards per carry allowed, which is 25th in the league. Not very good. So you're not looking very good as far as run defense for the Eagles. You want to figure that out, but I do believe in Vic Fangio, so I think the defense will continue to improve and look a little bit better. That being said, their pass defense looks better than I thought it would through 4 games because I am concerned about that secondary. We'll see how it shakes out the rest of the season, but Vic Fangio is a very good defensive coordinator, and I think he'll have them humming near the end of the season. Okay, we've looked at the Eagles' offense and defense. Now let's look at the teams that they've been playing against because they did play against some really good teams. I know this wasn't week 1, this is week 2, but they played against the Chiefs. And let's look at how the Chiefs' defense looked. The Chiefs' defense is 7th in the league in yards per game allowed, which is 195 passing. And then opposing passer rating is 85.4, which is 10th. So they have a top 10 defense against the pass. And then their rush defense, while it has looked good throughout the season, actually isn't that great. They're allowing 127 yards per game on the ground, which is 22nd, 4.9 yards per carry, which is 27th. And the Eagles' offense and the rushing attack didn't do much against the Chiefs. They really didn't look that good. And I just think that this Eagles' offense should have looked better, but their defense looked fine against the Chiefs, given the Chiefs were missing a couple of pieces. And so this is a definitely really good defense. It's not one of the best defenses in the league, but a very good defense. Now we look at the Cowboys' defense, which is who they played week 1, and we did not expect the Cowboys' defense to be good, and they are not good. They're really terrible, even though they traded Micah Parsons for a good rush defense help, which is kind of stupid. That being said, we expected this defense to look bad, and they do look really bad. The Cowboys' passing defense, 309 yards per game allowed, which is last in the league, and their opposing passer rating is 123, which is second to last in the league. So definitely a very bad pass defense. The rush defense a little bit better, which is still allowing 123 yards per game, which is 19th, and 4 yards per carry, which is 13th. I mean, I guess shout out Jerry Jones. Your rush defense is okay to less than okay, not great all the way around. And their pass defense is absolutely atrocious. They allowed Russell Wilson to look like the Russell Wilson of old, like an MVP candidate. And then the next week he's bad and then gets benched. So that puts things into perspective of how good the Cowboys defense is. And let's be fair, the Eagles offense didn't look that good against that Cowboys defense. Now let's look at the Rams defense and how they've looked through 4 games this season. Their passing defense is allowing 213 yards per game, which is 12th in the league, and their opposing passer rating is 89.1, which is 14th in the league. So it's around middle of the pack. It's pretty good. Their rush defense is definitely better than that. 98.5 yards per game, which is 10th, and 3.9 yards per carry, which is 8th. So the Rams defense, they do have a very good defense. It's a very young defense, a very fast defense. So that can explain why the Eagles looked not so great, given in the second half, they were amazing against the Rams. The first half, they were absolutely atrocious. So it's definitely a tale of two halves. The Rams kind of blew it, I think, in the second half by being a little bit too conservative and just trying to run out the clock, which again, I always say, if you're playing not to lose, then you're definitely also playing to not win the game. That being said, the Rams do have a good defense. And in week 4, they play against the Bucs, and the Bucs defense is definitely a good defense. Their passing defense allows 208 yards per game, which is 10th, and their opposing passer rating is 95.7, which is 20th. That means they're not really getting that many turnovers on defense. That being said, their rush defense is very good, one of the best in the league. They're only allowing 85 rushing yards per game, which is 5th, and 3.3 yards per carry, which is 2nd. So very good rush defense, which holds Barkley in the running game back. And then their pass defense is definitely good enough to not allow opposing passing teams to do very well against them. That being said, the Eagles in that game had a punt blocked and returned for a touchdown. Their special teams is very good. They blocked the field goal as well. It's their special teams is definitely lifting them up better than they should look. But the Bucs defense, they do have a very good defense. So what do we take away from this? Basically, we see that through the first 4 games, the Eagles are playing against very good offenses. And so the defense didn't look as good as they probably will the rest of the season. So I think the defense will be fine, even though I am somewhat worried about that secondary. But the pass rush is so good that the secondary gets a little bit of grace, for sure. So I'm not as worried about the defense. That offense, though, they're going up against good defenses, and some of them very good defenses. But it's not enough to explain how, with one of the best running backs in the league, one of the best offensive lines in the league, and one of the best wide receiver duos in the league, followed by one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Honestly, he's definitely a top 10 quarterback, if not a top 5, 6, 7 quarterback in the league. It just doesn't make sense that they're not able to move the ball. So I am very concerned about that moving forward. Saquon isn't having any big rushes this year. That's what last year they would put teams away every single week by having these long 60, 70-yard touchdown runs by Saquon in the 3rd or 4th quarter that would just totally put the game out of the reach for the other team, and then the defense would clamp down and take over the rest of the game. And so we're not seeing that this year. You're not having these long, explosive runs by Saquon. And so then it makes the team look a little bit worse than they did last year, for sure. So that's definitely contributing. I do think that the play calling has been really bad and vanilla. Obviously, A.J. Brown's not super happy about it either, given he's not usually very happy anyways. That being said, they're not using him very creatively, not using him in ways that he can get open, not giving him layup receptions. So there's definitely problems with the scheme on offense in the passing game, and that is holding back this offense for sure. I think it's putting more pressure on the run game and on the offensive line. When the passing game isn't doing very well, the teams are definitely going to be stacking the box a little bit more, and so you can't expect as much from Saquon Barkley, but teams are definitely keying in on the run this season, and you need the passing game to step up. And I think probably because offensive coordinating and the pass play calls have just been really bad. I think that's definitely a huge part of it. I don't know how much to place at the feet of Jalen Hurts. I don't know. He's definitely a good quarterback. He definitely proved it last season, especially winning the Super Bowl, and the way that he did it. He looked very good in that game, but it just hasn't looked very good. And so I think part of it you have to place at the feet of the quarterback, part of it you have to place at the feet of the head coach, and then definitely a large part you have to place at the feet of the offensive coordinator. And that's what I've been seeing from Eagles fans as well, is that it largely falls on the offensive coordinator. But I'd be curious to think what everyone else's thoughts are on this, to see what everyone else has to say, as well as maybe some statistics that I missed that would clear things up as well.